The following podcast is a presentation of This Is Infamous. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, episode number 2 to be perfectly precise. I'm your host, as always, Billy Donnelly, who you can find at joeblow.com, and this is Infamous. And what we do here on the show is, well, we talk about wrestling in an intelligent manner. We take logic, we take reason, we apply it to the conversation. We take perspective and we apply it to the conversation, and we jettison all the fanboy hysteria that makes up the IWC. And we try to really shape the conversation and inform you as to why things matter, why certain things work, why they don't work, and treat wrestling not only as an art form, but as a business and as a passion. It's something we can sort of understand on a number of levels, and not necessarily just something that we get excited about. This week, as like every other week, pretty interesting happenings within the world of professional wrestling. It's never a dull week when it comes to professional wrestling / sports entertainment. There's always something to talk about, always something interesting to go down. And this week, pretty big blockbuster announcement that there had been rumblings on in the sort of 48 hours leading up to the official announcement. And that is the news that Brock Lesnar, last seen in Dallas, Texas, defeating Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania 32, will be heading to Las Vegas July 9th to compete once again in the Octagon for the UFC. At UFC 200, he will be face-to-face with Mark Hunt in a special one-off match, bout, fight inside the cage. Oh, this is huge news. Brock Lesnar, who had retired from potential competition in the Octagon not too long ago, is going back. Remember, this was at the crux of Brock Lesnar's decision to re-sign with Vince McMahon and the WWE. I believe it was 2 years ago that Brock Lesnar was faced with an expiring contract with the WWE and was exploring his options to once again re-enter the world of mixed martial arts, re-enter the world of MMA. And actually went forth with training for it to see how his body would respond and see whether or not he could still do it. And when push came to shove, when it was nut-cutting time, when it was time to make a decision and sign on the dotted line, Brock Lesnar opted to walk away from the UFC and commit as a special attraction to the WWE. Now, at the time, Brock Lesnar expressed that he was haunted by diverticulitis robbing him of time in the UFC. Robbing him of being able to show just what he could do before he walked away from the Octagon. Because let's remember, towards the end of his UFC run, after suffering through diverticulitis, he still was not fully recovered. He still was not the best beast that they could put out there. And he walked away from that and once again found a home in the WWE. Who would sort of let him have free reign. Whereas other talents did not necessarily have the leeway of Brock Lesnar. Had a contract that paid him pretty well. Had a contract that only required a limited number of dates for him to appear. Wasn't really saddled with traveling the road, which is, or was, a big factor in him walking away from the WWE many years ago when he was really at his peak. When he was the next big thing. But as it seems to stand now, with comments that Brock Lesnar has made following the announcement that he'll be returning to the UFC from the WWE, at least for a one-off appearance, Brock Lesnar was haunted again by his decision to go to the WWE. Not because he didn't respect the WWE or want to be a part of their operation, but mainly because making that choice took away his chance to see whether or not he could still compete at a high level inside the Octagon. Whether or not he still had it, that competitive drive that burns inside someone like Brock Lesnar was extinguished. And what remained inside of him was this thought of, what if? What if I could have stepped into that Octagon? What if I could have had another fight? What if I could have been the UFC champion again? What if? Lots of what if. And while he's made a really good living based off of what he's earned with the WWE, while he's had a pretty extraordinary run as not only the man who ended the streak of The Undertaker, but who also once again captured the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, headlined WrestleMania 2 years ago. It's been a pretty productive run for Brock Lesnar as a guy who isn't there week in and week out. But still, that temptation to go back to the Octagon remained because, not to say it's a regret, but it's an option he did not at least get to explore to its fullest extent. He got to think about it, he got to consider it, but he didn't get to go back. And now with him being allowed to return to the UFC for UFC 2000, or UFC 200 rather, in July, Brock Lesnar gets to test his mettle. Brock Lesnar gets to see if he's still got it. Now, I've been hearing since this announcement was made that, well, maybe that's not in the best interest of the WWE. How does this help the WWE? Helps Brock Lesnar. Helps the UFC. How does this help the WWE? How does this help the long-term picture of Brock Lesnar in the WWE? Is Brock Lesnar even still in the WWE? And the answer to that is yes. Brock Lesnar is still a part of the WWE. He's still under contract to the WWE, but he has been granted the ability to go and compete in the Octagon. Now, that's not something everybody gets. This is one of those Brock Lesnar special cases. There's rules for Brock Lesnar. There's rules for everybody else. Not necessarily that there's anything wrong with that. It's just the price of business. Brock Lesnar is still a main attraction for the WWE. So why send that away? If Brock Lesnar comes to you and says, hey, Vince, I agreed to sign up with you 2 years ago. I've been happy about that decision. It's been fruitful for both of us. But there's a part of me that still wants to go into the Octagon and see if I can still do it. What choice does Vince really have to say other than yes? Because if he says no, you're probably not going to get much more out of Brock Lesnar. Contract or not, Brock Lesnar would walk away just as he did the last. He may still not have the option to go to the UFC. He might wait it out till his contract expires. But Brock Lesnar would walk away from that deal and say, screw it. I don't need any of this shit. I get enough money. I just want to live on my farm with my family and my animals and do what I do. Do what Brock Lesnar does. So what options does Vince McMahon really have other than to say yes and keep happy one of his main attractions? Now, I don't expect everyone to do this, to be in this position, to come to Vince McMahon and say, hey, I'd like to do this. Hey, I'd like to do that. Unless they're willing to walk, because that's the difference between Brock Lesnar and others. Brock Lesnar doesn't really need the WWE. Brock Lesnar will be fine without the WWE. If the WWE does not adhere to Brock Lesnar's terms, Brock Lesnar is going to go do something else. Now, there have been plenty of wrestlers who have walked away from the WWE because they did not like the way the things were operating on their behalf, but those are the exceptions to the rule, aren't they? Brock Lesnar's an exception to the rule because if he says, let me do this or I'll quit, he's not really bluffing. You can't call someone on their bluff if they don't bluff. And I really do believe that Brock Lesnar does not bluff. Brock Lesnar puts out what he means at all times. He says what he means, and he means what he says. And if Brock Lesnar says, I want to fight in the Octagon, then he wants to fight in the Octagon. If Brock Lesnar were to say, and this is speculative, because he has not said that he said this, but if Brock Lesnar were to say, let me do this or I'm out, I have a tendency to believe that if Brock Lesnar is not allowed to do that, he's going to be out. And if Brock Lesnar walks away and you still don't get any benefit out of the deal, then what the hell was it all for? You may have won on principle, but you lost on product. So Brock Lesnar's being allowed to come back to the UFC for a one-off. Number one, this is sort of a perfect storm for the UFC. Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor, which was supposed to headline UFC 200, had been pulled. So they were looking for a big major attraction to bring in to their milestone event. Brock Lesnar is that. Because not only do you attract MMA fans who are curious as to whether or not Brock Lesnar can still do this, whether or not Brock Lesnar might even be better at it than he was before, but now you've also attracted wrestling fans who may not otherwise order UFC events on pay-per-view, but who might now because of the fact that Brock Lesnar is going to be appearing, and how many other opportunities might they have to go watch that? Hell, I don't order UFC pay-per-views. I watch it sparingly. But I have a deep temptation to pony up the cash to order UFC 200 in July to watch Brock Lesnar in the Octagon. That's a lot of wins for everyone, for the UFC, for Dana White, for Brock Lesnar. So now let me get back to the question that I raised, that has been raised by some fans in recent days. Which is, how does the WWE benefit from any of this? What does this do for the WWE? What if Brock Lesnar goes to the Octagon and loses? What does that mean for the WWE? I mean, I don't really think it's a negative because one is predetermined and the other is a legitimate fight that could go either way. I think you could propel a win or a loss and use that for a storyline either way. Since Brock Lesnar has confirmed that he'll be appearing in August as part of SummerSlam. You're certainly going to get a ton of exposure as you cross-promote Brock Lesnar at both UFC 200 and SummerSlam. Every time you discuss Brock Lesnar heading into UFC 200, the term WWE Superstar is going to be attached to his name. So WWE Superstar Brock Lesnar competes in the UFC. Now you may bring MMA fans towards the WWE product. But see, here's where the real intelligent part of our conversation sets in. It all stems from the long game of Vince McMahon and the WWE. See, when Vince McMahon makes a deal, when he makes an arrangement, when he comes to an agreement, Vince McMahon does it to see what is the best possible outcome for him and his company. Now, the promotion aspect between UFC 200 and SummerSlam, that's a big part of coming to this agreement to allow Brock Lesnar to go into the Octagon again. Another element of that is having a happy, satisfied Brock Lesnar as part of your roster. Those are the short-term benefits. What are the long-term benefits? Well, this is that chip. That bargaining chip. That favor chip. Then Vince McMahon is able to take and tuck away to put in his pocket, put in a safe, safety deposit box, under the mattress, in the shoebox, in the closet, in the floorboards, wherever it is that he wants to store it away for a rainy day. This is that moment. Because when Vince McMahon feels it necessary, when the right time comes, when the clouds roll in for that rainy day, Vince McMahon is going to pull that chip out, put it down on the table, slide it on over to Dana White, and expect the favor to be repaid. And what will that favor be? UFC talent appearing on WWE programming. Most notably, Ronda Rousey. Let's not forget that it was 2 years ago, WrestleMania 31, where Ronda Rousey appeared and did a segment involving The Rock and Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. And from that stemmed a firestorm of possibilities and speculation about Ronda Rousey stepping into a WWE ring again, this time in a physical sense. Stepping in and competing in a match, either against Stephanie McMahon or perhaps a mixed tag with The Rock against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. And with all of that speculative fantasy booking conversation, discussion, debate about how Ronda Rousey could possibly come into the WWE, Dana White very quickly squashed all of that by saying Ronda Rousey was under contract to the UFC and that she would not be appearing at any WWE events. Because the only way that could possibly happen is for her to be granted permission by the UFC. Well, guess what? Now, it could, maybe, one day, sometime soon, possibly happen. That's the chip. Because Vince McMahon could take that chip, slide it across the table to Dana White, and said, hey man, remember when I did you a favor? Letting you have Brock Lesnar compete at UFC 200? Now it's time to pay the piper, so to speak. Now it's time to repay. Now it's time for my end of the deal to be cashed in. It's like Money in the Bank. Ironically, Vince McMahon's cashing in that briefcase. And getting ready when the time is right to capitalize on this arrangement with Dana White and the UFC. So for everyone complaining about how could this possibly be good for the WWE to let Brock Lesnar go over to the UFC, do you want to see Ronda Rousey in the WWE at some point? Do you want to see her step in a ring? Maybe have a match? A one-off? A special appearance? This is how that happens. Did you think Dana White, out of the goodness of his heart, was going to one day say, oh, Ronda Rousey, you want to go be part of a match in the WWE? Go ahead. Do what you want. No. That was never going to happen. And I know they say never, but I'm saying never. It was never going to go down like that. The only way it happens is a quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. There's a lot of back scratching going on right now between Dana White and Vince McMahon. And Brock Lesnar is the first stitch. And I get the feeling that down the line, Ronda Rousey will be another one. Because you could be damn sure that the WWE was tempted by all of the possibilities they could have opened up with Ronda Rousey being involved. But they couldn't do anything with them because they were never going to be granted permission to have Ronda Rousey show up in a ring and do what they wanted to have Ronda Rousey do. Now, it's a possibility. They could maybe have that happen. That is the long-term benefit of Brock Lesnar competing at UFC 200. So the WWE gets to hold on to a favor for one day down the line where they can cash that in for some sort of UFC involvement in one of their events. And everyone will have walked away with benefits at some point in time. Now, what does this mean for Brock Lesnar? I don't know. If Brock Lesnar goes to UFC 200 and defeats Mark Hunt in the Octagon, does he get that itch still? Is that itch scratched? Or does that itch become persistent for him to want to stay in the UFC and compete? Is once enough? Will Brock Lesnar be satisfied by answering the bell one time and seeing if he can still do it? Or would a victory at UFC 200 mean that Brock Lesnar wants to keep pushing his luck? See how far he can go with this. See just how much he can achieve within the UFC now that his diverticulitis days are behind him. See, that's the real question that should be on the mind of wrestling fans concerning Brock Lesnar returning to the UFC. Does that mean he stays there? I know that everyone said that he's still under contract to the WWE, that this is just going to be a one-off event. But Brock Lesnar has already come to Vince McMahon one time and said, I want to do this. And Vince has granted it. So what's going to come back? What's going to happen if he comes back a second time? Or a third time? Can't possibly think if Vince McMahon's going to start saying no to that prospect. If he's going to keep banking chips or reaping the benefits of bringing in audiences to the product that might follow and be fascinated by Brock Lesnar elsewhere. Would Brock Lesnar be the only WWE superstar allowed to compete elsewhere at the exact same time he's under contract to the WWE? Because that would be a fascinating development. To have Brock Lesnar be a UFC WWE crossover? I mean, in the end, everyone wins when it comes to that. That's like Spider-Man returning back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe while still being under control of Sony Pictures. Sony still gets the benefit because they still own Spider-Man. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe gets the benefit because they get to use Spider-Man. Brock Lesnar right now is Spider-Man. And holding him in just one spot doesn't do everyone any good. I mean, it does one company good, but there's going to be people who walk away kind of disappointed. But if you let Brock Lesnar go out everywhere... Now look, there's a downside to that, of course. Brock Lesnar could get hurt, in which case the WWE looks at that and say, well, we took a risk and it didn't pay off. I know Brock Lesnar has compared himself to the modern-day Bo Jackson, who was able to play baseball and football at the exact same time, but let's also remember what happened to Bo Jackson in the long run. Injury derailed both sides of Bo Jackson's career, and that was the end of Bo Jackson. when all was said and done, Bo knows hip replacement. Now, look, you can't necessarily guard against injury. Those are just a part of life, part of the game. And if something were to happen to Brock Lesnar, you can't look at that and say, well, we should have foresaw that coming, because it's impossible to predict the future. There's no way to know. All you can do is try to make the best possible decisions you have today. And the best possible decision that Vince McMahon could have possibly made is allowing Brock Lesnar to go and compete in an Octagon once again for UFC 200. It brings eyes to Brock Lesnar, which automatically brings eyes to the WWE. The only people who possibly suffer from this arrangement are any WWE superstars who are called on to step in the ring with Brock Lesnar at a WWE event. Because that guy competed in the UFC, in the Octagon, and won. Especially if he wins now. How do you expect anyone to be taken seriously as a competitor to Brock Lesnar in a WWE ring when he just beat somebody's ass in the Octagon? If he loses, it's not that big a deal because, once again, that's real fighting. Granted, professional wrestling, sports entertainment is still real to a degree. It's just predetermined results. As Stone Cold Steve Austin would like to say, it's a work. It's predetermined, but it's still real. Guys still get hurt. So if you take somebody and you stick them in a match with Brock Lesnar, their credibility kind of takes a hit because what they're doing is not fighting in the Octagon. Brock Lesnar's credibility shoots way up. How is Brock Lesnar not the WWE World Heavyweight Champion? How is Roman Reigns the guy when Brock Lesnar's on your roster? And Brock Lesnar makes everybody else on your roster kind of look like shit. But once again, that's now up to you developing talent that could be looked at as somewhat equal to Brock Lesnar. Look, I think it's a pretty sweet deal. When the rumblings started to come out, I said to myself, there's no way. Then as more details have come about how this has come about, it's an exciting prospect. When July rolls around, I may be purchasing UFC 200 to watch Brock Lesnar in the Octagon. And I don't think I'm the only one whose curiosity has been piqued by the idea of Brock Lesnar competing in the UFC once again. UFC 200 was going to be a big deal to begin with. Now it's an even bigger deal that Brock Lesnar has been added to the equation. Look forward to seeing who Brock Lesnar is going to step into the ring at SummerSlam with. But first things first, let's see how he does with Mark Hunt at UFC 200 in Vegas on July 9th. All right, I did watch Monday Night Raw this week. It was another terrible affair. After a while, my eyes just sort of glazed over, and it was just kind of on in front of me. And there was nothing really that was drawing me to it. I don't know how this is the momentum, so to speak, that they were hoping to get going towards Money in the Bank, and now this brand extension when SmackDown goes live in June. Or July, rather, sorry. It is, it's pretty dull. And I understand you're trying to build up talent. Most of it is coming through this Money in the Bank match. But the way it's all presented is so lifeless and written and inorganic that it's hard to really get behind most of this talent, even though they're in a spot that you want to get behind, because they're not giving me anything to any of them. Not giving me anything to Sami Zayn. As much as I love Sami Zayn, as the character they're developing, they're not really giving Sami Zayn too much to do. Alberto Del Rio's just kind of there. Chris Jericho's doing the same thing he's been doing. Dean Ambrose, really no progress as a character. Cesaro, great spot, but give him something to do. The only one who really seems to be getting anything to do is Kevin Owens, and that's because it's just a part of his personality. He's kind of a dick, so he gets to be a bit of a dick, and as a result, it draws heat on him. But everyone else doesn't really get anything that draws favor towards what they're doing. Whether it's sympathy or heat, they're getting nothing. And that's supposed to be the next crop that moves up towards the main event. But if there's no emotional investment in what they're doing, even now, heading into a Money in the Bank ladder match, whenever they do capture the briefcase and have an opportunity to cash it in, who cares other than the shock value of it? Because you haven't done the legwork to make the character matter when it counts. So you have these like long, drawn-out promo segments between 6 guys. Visually, it was bizarre because they were, for some reason, all sitting up on ladders. What was to stop anyone from coming into the ring and just pushing somebody off in order to get an advantage on them is beyond me. But it astounds me that they employ so many writers. They have such a large writing staff to create these segments for their programming, whether it's Monday Night Raw or what will be Tuesday SmackDown. And yet, they have not one editor among the bunch. You look at this segment, you look at there's a women's segment later on in Raw that is Charlotte and Dana Brooke, who somehow has gone from okay to worse in her call-up. And Becky Lynch and Natalya, and there are these bloated segments where people say a lot but really say nothing. There's a lot of words but nothing being said. And they wind up just being these rambling train wrecks that not only watching as a viewer at home make me cringe, but the silence that you hear in the arenas should also speak volumes about how much interest they are giving to what they're watching. And what winds up making it worse is that Teddy Long shows up out of nowhere wanting to run SmackDown and can't even say anything that makes any sort of sense. You have no Shane McMahon, with the explanation being that he's on vacation, and you have Stephanie just being annoyed by Teddy Long nonstop. And throughout the night, when Teddy Long continues to show up and make matches and cut promos, who let this guy in the building? Forget about who let him in the building. Who then gave him a microphone and ran clearance to play his music when he just walks out in the middle and interrupts the show? If a guy jumped the barricade and just hopped into the ring after grabbing Lillian Garcia's microphone, they wouldn't hit music for him. So why should this trespasser be treated any differently? I get that you want to make him part of the show, but it makes no sense. And then, of course, you have the mix and matches of talent in the Money in the Bank who square off in one-on-one matches and whatever. We've already seen this before. It's so repetitive, so cyclical. And it's uninteresting to watch. It's just not interesting. It's dull. I kept saying to myself, please go to commercial so I can flip over to the hockey game. Actually, there were times where I was saying, can I just flip over to the hockey game? I didn't even need a commercial. I was just like, there's hockey on. This is an excuse for me to get out of here. That's how not exciting it is right now. Because they have talent that they don't really know how to make compelling. So it happens when you live inside the WWE bubble to an extent, is that you just don't understand what else is going outside of the bubble that might get fans excited. Your finger is no longer on the pulse of pop culture, as they like to claim they are. Your finger is on your own pulse. You're sitting there checking your own pulse all the time. Then, on top of that, they insisted on doing sort of these dueling video packages to drum up interest in the Seth Rollins Roman Reigns match that's coming at Money in the Bank. So you have no Roman Reigns making an appearance, and you have no Seth Rollins making an appearance. You're only going to do video packaging, which means the video is going to dictate how you should feel about either of these talents based off of how they're depicted. Now, the first thing that comes up is the Seth Rollins package, which I thought was outstanding. If I can give the WWE credit for one thing consistently, it is their ability to put together compelling video packages. I wish the editors that they had, the producers they had on those video packages, those were the people who were calling all the shots on Raw and SmackDown, because maybe you might be at somebody who tells an interesting story, because that's what these video packages are. They're telling a story. One's telling the story of Seth Rollins, the other is telling the story of Roman Reigns. And I thought putting the Seth Rollins one first was a massive blunder, because to watch the Seth Rollins package afterwards, like, how the hell could you root for Roman Reigns after seeing what Seth Rollins went through to get to where he is? You can push all the stuff with the Shield aside and, you know, stabbing Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose in the back and trying to get ahead. Whatever. That's a part of his past, his heelish past, which we've already been through. Then the guy gets hurt. Okay? Tears up his knee in a match against Kane, has to vacate the World Heavyweight Championship that he worked so hard through his life to get to, the top of the industry. He got there, and now he's got to vacate that because of injury. And you see what makes Seth Rollins tick. You see a guy who's been passionate about professional wrestling since he was a kid. Wrestling has been the dream. So you put that in the basket of what makes up Seth Rollins. The dreamer. The passionate dreamer who loves wrestling. That goes in the basket. A guy whose dream was cut down due to an unfortunate event. It's heartbreaking. It's sad. It's horrible. You have sympathy for that guy. You feel empathy towards what he's going through. Put that in the basket. And you get a guy who works his ass off. Busts his ass day in and day out for months to recover from this injury, and not only just recover, but to come back stronger, faster, better than ever, and return to the spot you had to leave behind due to freakish events. How do you not root for that guy? How do you heal up that guy so that he's not a babyface, so that he's not somebody whose struggle, whose journey you identify with? How do you heal that guy up? How do you make that somebody that you look at and you go, oh, well, whatever, I hate him? How do you do that? I don't think the WWE knows, because they haven't been able to do it. Because at the same time, you look at Roman Reigns and all he could do is say, well, Seth Rollins stabbed me he betrayed me with the Shield, and then he cashed in his Money in the Bank match, his Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania, which is well within the rules, and stole my moment. You know, I'm on a Hamilton kick right now. And listen to the album nonstop. Roman Reigns is a bit of Aaron Burr. This guy who constantly looks at the other guy and goes, but what about that guy? That guy gets this. How come I can't have that? Even though he's getting plenty himself. Seth Rollins is the young, scrappy, and hungry guy who works his ass off to get what he wants. That's the guy that people respond to. That's a character that resonates with fans. Not somebody who seems to be gifted with his opportunity and then cries about it when it doesn't go his way. You know, when Roman Reigns' moment was quote-unquote stolen at WrestleMania, did Roman Reigns get all pissed off and angry? No. Kind of just took it in stride. Oh, well. I'll get him next time. There's no fire. No enthusiasm. No emotion. And that's the real difference between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns here, is one makes you feel something. The other doesn't. So I just thought a massive blunder to show these two packages, where one looks better in the fans' eyes because of the journey he's been through. Roman Reigns has no journey. Seth Rollins has a journey that people could look at and be inspired by. It's kind of shit you show before Olympic events about the trials and tribulations of how they got here. People eat that shit up. I mean, maybe I'm being judgmental in the moment. Maybe we could get a double turn at Money in the Bank. Maybe they didn't want the Seth Rollins to come back as sort of triumphant hero right away. And maybe at Money in the Bank, that's where they switch places. That's where Roman Reigns embraces the full heel. And that's where Seth Rollins embraces the fact that fans get behind what he's been through. I'm willing to let it play out to Money in the Bank and see if that's where we're headed. But if we get there and it doesn't, they're still continuing on the same path, even though everything surrounding both those individuals dictate they should go in another direction, not only am I going to be disappointed, I'm just going to scratch my head in amazement at how defiant they are in the face of the obvious. I mean, it's not that hard. I say it all the time. It's not rocket science. Find what makes the individuals compelling, and that will make the story compelling. You still haven't figured it out. At least not with Roman Reigns. an inkling that maybe they were starting to put the pieces together with the AJ Styles angle, but maybe not. Speaking of AJ Styles and his now feud with John Cena, why is it that John Cena never is angry? Can somebody please explain that to me? Look, I'm not a John Cena hater. I think John Cena is underrated by smarks who still refuse after all these years to acknowledge that John Cena can do things in the ring. John Cena does not suck. You may not like him. You may not like the character. You may wish the character was a little bit different, but John Cena does not suck. But why does John Cena never get angry? Dude gets his ass kicked. Never gets heated about it. Always still has a smile on his face. He's in good spirits. Leading chants. Never just comes out mad. They got jumped from behind. See, this is part of the problem that smarks have with John Cena, similar to what they have with Roman Reigns. Somebody gets beat up, unfairly, mind you. Natural response is to be mad about it. So be mad, John Cena. It's okay. I thought your promo with AJ Styles had some edge to it. I like my John Cena with some edge. Thought it was a little bit familiar to what we had with John Cena and Daniel Bryan, and John Cena and CM Punk, which is sort of these well-traveled wrestlers going back to the company line of they're better than John Cena. I think they added a nice little wrinkle to it, which is that John Cena's never been outside the WWE, so what does he know? Whereas AJ Styles has been around the world and has been great everywhere he's been. I mean, that's a nice wrinkle. Look, I'm looking forward to that match at Money in the Bank. There are two matches I'm really looking forward to at Money in the Bank. One, even though the build has been weak, is the ladder match for Money in the Bank. The other is Cena and Styles. They keep calling this a WrestleMania Dream Match, and I wish they didn't rush it right upon John Cena's return, because I think long-term they could do something with this, and I would like to see maybe AJ Styles come out victorious from this program. I think it would benefit him much more than it would John Cena. But that doesn't mean when they don't step in that ring and that bell rings that I'm not going to be excited about watching it, because I am. I'd be super psyched to watch that. Just a nitpick, though. Maybe let John Cena get angry every once in a while. Hulk Hogan got jumped. He got mad. He showed emotion. Steve Austin, The Rock, anybody gets jumped, they come out and they got a purpose to it. I'm going to kick their ass right back. Get revenge, retribution for what happened to me. They don't come out and cut jokes. I mean, look, John Cena character is pretty well defined. They're not going to make wholesale changes to it at this point. I'm just saying, if you could maybe just tweak it a little bit. Even now, just tweak it just a little bit. Maybe it'd be better for you in the long run. Or at least for whatever time John Cena has left before he goes off and does whatever it is John Cena's going to do next. All right, want to make one quick prediction with NXT TakeOver The End happening this week. Main evented by the steel cage match, first steel cage match in NXT history between Finn Balor and Samoa Joe. That is for the NXT Championship. I don't want to run down the rest of the card. I will break down the card next week, though, in the aftermath, and let you know what I liked and didn't like about NXT TakeOver The End. But just going in, I at least just wanted to talk about the main event. I think this is going to be a pretty astounding affair. This is, once again, the first time we've had a steel cage match inside Full Sail Arena or Full Sail University for an NXT TakeOver event. Number one, I think it'll be interesting considering how small that arena is, that venue is, how quickly they can get the cage up, because I don't know they're going to be able to rig it to hang it from the ceiling and then lower it like they do at the arenas. That's a pretty small place. So how they're going to be able to make this work where it's not obstructing the view of the television viewer? I don't know. Are they going to go old school and just build the sides as they go? I don't know either. So I think that will be somewhat of an interesting thing. The other part is, I think that the title of NXT TakeOver, The End, really revolves around Finn Balor's time in NXT. Not being the champion anymore, I think it gives him some interesting avenues to go with Samoa Joe as the champion and being chased by guys like Austin Aries and Shinsuke Nakamura. I think that Finn Balor has been a great ambassador for NXT to help raise awareness of the brand, and he has probably achieved all it is that he can achieve there. That said, where does he go next? With a call-up to the main roster, maybe not as the head of the Balor Club, which seemed to be what they were hinting at with Gallows and Anderson, with AJ Styles pretty firmly in that spot, having recently completed the heel turn. I don't know where Finn Balor fits in next. I don't think that he's a guy who can just show up in the WWE and take it by storm, unless he's going to just show up right as the Demon, and then, the WWE audience gets conditioned to want to expect that all the time. I think Samoa Joe is going to retain the belt. I think this is the way for them to sort of cap off and blow off this feud and send people in other directions. I don't know what this means for Finn Balor. If we're going to see Finn Balor show up following Money in the Bank, or if he's going to be involved in some way, shape, or form on that card. I don't know. But this is the one match that I am really looking forward to. Other than, I'm also looking forward to Austin Aries and Shinsuke Nakamura, as well as the tag team title match. But at least this match I wanted to talk to. I think it's going to be a really cool thing to have a steel cage match in that venue. I think that crowd, while they can be a pain in the ass at times, I think that the passion that they show and will show for this match is going to shine through in the broadcast. I'm looking forward to catching NXT TakeOver The End. And while the takeovers have been solid, I think this one has a lot to sort of live up to and prove that the sort of next era of NXT is in good hands. So there's a lot riding on this. I'll be interested to see how this card plays out, but I am really looking forward to this match. All right, I'm going to give that as the go-home cue and get the hell out of here and send you on your way. Make sure, look, you follow us on social media. Follow us at the IWC Show on Twitter. That's at the IWC Show on Twitter. That's the official Twitter handle of Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. So if there's anything you want to hit us up with immediately, you do it on that Twitter account. At Tiz Infamous as well. That's the mothership of This Is Infamous, which is back online. So thisisinfamous.com, back online. So for all the good content we put up there, at Tiz Infamous, that'll give you your notifications. At Billy the Kid, that's not true. It's at Infamous Kid. That's the correct one. At Infamous Kid for all my random ramblings and musings, my stream of consciousness that hits my Twitter feed. At Infamous Kid, 2 Ds at the end. Follow me on there. You want to send an email to the show, you can do it at, you can send it, it's not at, it's the IWC Show at gmail.com. Got any comments on anything that we had to run through and say on the show? That is the IWC Show at gmail.com. Go ahead and send your emails. I'll read them. I'll check them out. Maybe I'll respond to them. We'll see how it goes, but send them my way. Over on Facebook, a couple pages for you to check out. Facebook.com/TizInfamous and Facebook.com/BullyTheKid. Fight through those Facebook algorithms for all the good comment threads and discussions that we put up on our Facebook. Good notifications and just interesting dialogue going on there. So like both those pages, get involved with them, and you'll be better off in the long run. Podcasts can be found at SoundCloud.com. So on the web, SoundCloud.com/TizInfamous, or just get the app, man. That's the easiest way to do it. Get the app for your phone, for your tablet, and you can take all of the podcasts on the go with you. Listen to them whenever you want. So the SoundCloud app, get it on your phone or your tablet. It's free, it's easy to get, and you can have the shows with you all the time. So on the web, SoundCloud.com/TizInfamous or the SoundCloud app. You can read my work, follow my work on a regular basis at joeblow.com and thisisinfamous.com. And with that said, I'm going to get out of here. So I'll be back next week talking about NXT TakeOver, The End. In the meantime, you have yourself a pleasant, immediate future. Enjoy that show. And I'll be back next week talking more wrestling here on Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. I've been your host, Billy Donnelly. I'm out for now. Peace. Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, episode number 2, has been a presentation of This Is Infamous.